It was back to the WNBA playoffs for the first time since 2016 for the Indiana Fever, but did not go as they had hoped. 93-69, the loss to the Connecticut Sun, but it was a game, while they were in it most of the way until kind of the fourth quarter, it was one they never really had the rhythm, never really had any flows. A game defined by so many disruptions, especially early in the game. Most notably, Carrington catching Caitlin Clark in her right eye. Afterwards, you could easily see a black eye there below her right eye. Gotta believe one way or another, whether it was pain, whether it was visually or just frustration, it had to get to Clark, no doubt about that, in a game where she shot it poorly and, again, like the Fever, never really found any rhythm. Then you had some trouble right here at the scores table where the shot clock had multiple issues, and they finally had to reset that in order to get that functioning properly. But that directly impacted this Indiana Fever team because they're a team that wants to get it and go, and so several times after getting stops, play was held up because of that. But there was a lot that the Indiana Fever, I think, can build upon in this one, but overall just a disappointing back to the playoffs for the Fever.
Yeah, obviously got me pretty good in the eye. I don't think it affected me. Honestly, I felt like I got good shots. They just didn't go down, and obviously a tough time for that to happen. I got some really good looks. I felt I had three pretty wide open threes in the first half that like you usually make, so that's tough, but I felt like I battled and tried my best.
With or without adjustment, I think that we should all, us 12 should be aggressive to start the game. To make, great players gonna make tough shots, but I think that we could be better in those areas of just mucking it up and making it a little bit more uglier when they do take tough shots, and I think that, that's our big step to make them take tough shots all game.
I think this series is one that may be defined by experience. 222 games of playoff experience for the Connecticut Sun on one end. On the other, it's the Fever. They have just about 19. 8 of those, Damiris Dantas, who came off the bench, scored about a dozen points in a good role for the Fever, and we talked to her post-game. But and I thought her comments, by the way, were a little bit revealing, just in the frustration of how they didn't respond, how they weren't able to get stops, and offensively, too much one-on-one play and really unable to get within the flow of the offense that they are looking for.
What's ahead of this series? A couple minutes after this game, the team stopped playing.
From Mohegan Sun Arena.
You can't do this against a team like Connecticut. I think that they understand the magnitude of where we are. They've been through it. They understand that it takes another level, it takes another gear, it takes another level of urgency, and the margin for error is smaller. And so I think because they've been there, they understand it, and they're leading by example. They were locked in.
When you talk about the Connecticut Sun team, they just have so many good players, and they can hit you from all over. Alyssa Thomas, who was a top 5 finalist for the WNBA MVP, she gets a triple-double. By the way, Caitlin Clark finishing 4th in the voting for that one. You go down the line, a key change was DeWanna Bonner starting defensively on Caitlin Clark, and listed at 6'4". It looks and feels like she's about 6'7" out there because of her height and because of her wingspan. Causes all kinds of troubles for whomever she guards. She's a veteran, has over 80 games of playoff experience, and she got it done on both ends of the floor as well. And that's an area I thought in a clear difference from the 4 regular season matchups.
It was about having length. It was about giving us versatility, in our pick and roll situations, giving a different look. So much about this game is about comfort. It's about rhythm. It's about timing. It's about all those things. And how can you make a adjustment that disrupts some of that?
Just game planning, trying to come up with a strategy. They beat us last time, so we had to do something different. Yeah, that was about it. It was nothing behind it. They got 2 great guards, so somebody got to step up and play defense. And that's the only way to beat them. So just took on the challenge, and she's a great player. I know next game she's going to come out firing. So got to go back, watch some video and see what we can do. But it was nothing behind it. That's the only way we can win, honestly.
They were going to make adjustments. They were going to change up their schemes. They were going to change the matchups. We had talked about getting back matchups that we wanted that we thought would be helpful for us. I agree with what Caitlin just said. We scored 69 points, and when we go back and watch this, I didn't really say much because I want to go back and watch and just kind of see. But I think we just, these guys are going to shoot the ball a lot better on Wednesday. and that's going to make a huge difference. And the first 3 quarters we battled. I think we got rattled in the third a little bit when they started they hit some shots.
In the second half, it was Marina Mabrey, a Indiana Fever killer, right? But first with the Chicago Sky, then mid-season, she was traded to this Connecticut Sun team, and we saw Ty Harris exited the game about 4 minutes in with a right ankle injury. She did return to the bench, but it was taped up. It had some ice and all of that. Maybe it turned out to be a good thing potentially, right, for the Sun because of who was able to fill in next. Was the top scorer in tonight's game, 27 points. 20 of those scored in the second half, and turned out to be, in this performance, the top scorer off the bench in WNBA playoff history. She hit 5 threes. The Fever hit 6 as a group. She's a player the Fever have to lock in on better going into game 2.
I mean, Caitlin draws a lot of fans. She's amazing. I'm not focused on that. Like, they can come see whoever they want to come see, but at the end of the day, we're here to win a championship. So we came out to win the game, whether they were cheering for Caitlin and the Fever or they were cheering for us.
There's some body contact. There's some sometimes these guys are coming off screens and movements where they're just getting bodied a lot. I felt that was happening early. I thought AB was getting not getting some calls down low that she probably should have. But at the end of the day, it's not about the officiating tonight for sure. I mean, we've got to be better defensively. I mean, and then to the question before that was asked, it's not the building the hoops. Like, the Connecticut Sun is a really, really good team. They're a really good team with a lot of experience, and they know what it takes to step up to that next level, that playoff level, and that's what we're going to be, and that's who we are going to become. And so that is, they made it really difficult, and we've got to close that gap.
You may remember how this Indiana Fever team started their season right here at Mohegan Sun Arena. You may remember they returned about a month later and were embarrassed. The starters benched at the end of the game. Well, this one, not quite to that level, but a lot of frustration, yet a lot of growing pains, I think, in this one. First of all, it kind of reminded me a little bit even of the Pacers series. So many, again, similarities between the two seasons, but not quite deer in headlights like if you remember with the Pacers in their Game 1 matchup in Milwaukee. But it was a situation where I think from afar it felt like the Fever were trying to feel things out, where they were trying to get comfortable in this environment. Now, I will tell you, here about 9,000 fans. It was a sellout, of course, and really cool to just walk around the concourse at halftime as I did. Men's restroom was filled, not just the women's. A lot more men coming to these games, a lot of them in Caitlin Clark jerseys and t-shirts. I would say so many of this crowd in those Caitlin Clark Navy t-shirt jerseys. Those are the popular hit, both with kids, both with adults. Talked to one father who brought his 2 girls. They were probably 6 and 8. Drove 2 hours from Massachusetts to see Caitlin Clark, their idol, play here in Connecticut. So that's a big deal, both in terms of Caitlin and Fever and the growth of this game and such. But unfortunately, it was not the competitive game, especially late, that all viewers were hoping for. Ultimately, as the Sun distanced themselves later in the games, they built up some momentum. They saw some shots go down. There were several times you could see frustration from several different players. In particular, in the second half, it was Caitlin Clark starting, I think, 1 of 11 from the field. The Fever called timeout to try to squash what was, I believe, a 12-2 run by the Sun, and pounded away at a chair on the bench multiple times before she went back into the game out of the timeout, knocked down 2 straight jumpers, maybe caught a small rhythm, but that's not going to last. Although I've been told this is a very difficult arena to shoot in. It's cold. The arena and the sightlines, perhaps. They weren't making excuses, though, post-game. This is a Fever team that knows they can play better, and here's where it starts. It starts with matching the physicality, not just taking a punch, but providing one. Got to provide more intensity at both ends of the floor, and then when you get stops defensively, racing it down on the other end of the floor. 9 fast break points, not enough to play a team like the Connecticut Sun, who very well could make it to the WNBA Finals. But this was a eye-opening experience for the Fever. They came out of this game healthy outside, I think, of that black eye for Caitlin Clark, and now they'll take Monday off, headed into Tuesday practice, and then Game 3 coming up on Wednesday.
I think that for us, we dropped the ball. We just didn't play well. We didn't do well enough to win, at least. And I think going forward, you keep your confidence, what it is, but take accountability as a player and as a team, and we look forward to Wednesday.
This is playoff basketball, and that's just, we've got to be able to handle when it gets chaotic. We've got to be able to handle it. We've got to have, when things aren't going our way, when we need to, slow it down and take a good shot. Like, we're gonna run. We're gonna play with pace. That is what we're gonna do. You got to get stops to do that. But that is where we are at our best. And again, I mean, we had some great looks. We had some great looks, both in transition and also in the half court. So, like Kelsey said, my gosh, like, we're going to figure it out. And we've got another opportunity on Wednesday to come back and then take this thing home.
So once again, it was a 93-69 Connecticut Sun Game 1 win over the Indiana Fever. And now the Fever already face an elimination game. That's what Wednesday is, because it's just best of 3. And yes, that means they may not even have a home game. That's one of the challenges with the current setup at the WNBA. Maybe it's something they'll change here in the upcoming CBA that expires in another year, 1-1-1 perhaps, but there's some challenges with that, but less so now that they have chartered flights. But now I'm very curious to see how this Fever team responds after this Game 1 loss, and I think it's better that it wasn't just a 5-point loss or a 6-point loss. Getting blown out like this, not quite embarrassed, but not quite even playing to their full potential here. Everybody has to step up. No one played a great game in this one, and that's another reason why I think you can expect a more competitive game coming up on Wednesday. A lot more to come from me here at Mohegan Sun Arena and in Connecticut. Reporting from Mohegan Sun Arena, I'm Scott Agness for FieldhouseFiles.com.